one of the biggest problems that was presenting itself in the world was a manure problem. And horses were used to transport people around cities and to transport the goods that were manufactured in the manufacturing facilities. And there was some statistic that said London was going to be covered in 9 feet of manure by a certain year, and obviously that didn't happen. And ultimately what happened was that urban planning took place, so cities were planned a lot better, and then things like trams and cars were invented, and trucks, so that all of these things could be dealt with. And if you fast forward now to where we're at in the 4th industrial revolution, I would say, if I was going to give a one-to-one sort of analogy, I'd say that our manure problem now is data. We've got data everywhere. There's so much data, we don't really know what to do with it. Our urban planning problem is having a strategy. Most people don't have a strategy to deal with the data or to deal with the skills that are actually there. So I think we have the same problems, and we can actually look to the past to actually see to the future. And I think that the problem is just not having all of this lined up correctly at the moment. But I think a lot of it just comes back to taking a very balanced and pragmatic view at it. What's our strategy? What are we trying to achieve? And then what's the path to actually solve all the challenges that are in front of us at the moment?
All right. So, that's absolutely. How about you? What do you think?
Yeah, and I think a lot of what I sort of see on a day-by-day basis is very much around the operational workforce. So if it's in health, it could be someone that goes and completes a home care service for someone with a disability. Or it could be a respite services within a group home, or it could be, if it's hospitality, it could be someone that serves a coffee in a coffee shop. Or a retailer, it could be the person that packs the truck that delivers the goods to a store, or the person that serves behind the checkout. And across all of these different industries, the same things sort of come through all the time. And I think, to sort of pick up on what Vanessa was saying, it's about keeping it humane and just taking the individual and understanding what they're about. It's about personalisation, to what Rajiv was saying earlier on as well. And I think I saw a statistic from the ABS recently, and it said that 86% of people want to have a flexible work schedule. And it's a massive figure, and it doesn't really matter whether you're blue collar or whether you're white collar. A flexible work schedule could be, I want to go and watch my son play a game of rugby in the afternoon or the evening, or it could be, I want to go and go to a concert, or whatever it happens to be. It doesn't really matter what type of work that we have. So I think what we just need to be is really cognizant of people and personalising that experience, and just enabling flexibility in the way in which people work, and what we do as employers to engage with those people.
Fantastic. That's great insight.
So, and I think a lot of it comes back to the generation. So are we dealing with a millennial, or are we dealing with someone that's been in the workforce for a lot longer, a baby boomer? And I was preparing for this discussion about a week ago, and I had my 15-year-old nephew with me who was doing work experience. And I gave him the basic structure of what we were going to be talking about today. And I said, here are the people that are going to be on the panel with me. And here's the types of questions that I need to be mindful of that we're going to be asked today. And I said, can you just do a bit of research for me and come back with some more information about the panellists, about the company, and about what answers would you give to these questions? He came back to me about 60 minutes later, 15, mind you, but is very tech savvy. And he had a situational report that he'd written. And it was very structured. It had information about Skillsoft. It had information about the panellists. It had, here's the broad topics that we're going to speak about, and here's my views on them. And I read it, and I thought, crap. Fair dinkum. Like, unbelievable. This is a 15-year-old kid, and so many of us are just underestimating the knowledge and and the fact that the younger generation are already there.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's one extreme, you know, and I was just blown away by that, and I just thought, this is just something that we can all learn from. But then let me look at the flip side of it and look at the baby boomer generation. Mm-hmm. We were doing some work recently with a major health company, and what they were looking was for a strategy to transform their operational workforce, their nurses, their carers and so on. And what they wanted more than anything was, sure, digital underpinned the strategy that they needed to take, but what they really wanted was someone with a clinical health background that could actually look at the eyes of all the clinical health workers, the nursing unit managers and so on, and be able to give them the confidence that that digital strategy was actually going to take them down a path that was not going to compromise quality of care. So I think it's a matter of being very cognizant of the knowledge that's around us and pulling that together and harnessing that.
Perfect. Zach, what are your thoughts?
If you look at a board and a shareholder, it's very much been monetary centric. Sure, their job is to mitigate risk, and there's all these good things that boards and shareholders have to do.
Mm-hmm.
But I think into the future, the board and the shareholder is a very important consideration, but equally as important to that is the employees that work for those organisations and ultimately the customers that those employees serve. And I see that into the future that they all need to be balanced equally. So it's not just about, I pay you the money, you work for me, you do what I tell you to do. Because I think if we do that now, and you look at, you know, a 15-year-old nephew example, he just won't work for you because he won't understand. And so I think that the future is balancing those three attributes together, as well as balancing the generations and understanding all the value that those generations can offer. And I think we're going to, because there's so much data everywhere, I think that everything's going to become very transparent. So now, back to the board and shareholder again, you can go and look at the ASX and you'll see a financial rating on a company and all of these risk measures and everything that sit there. I see that in the future there'll also be a couple of other metrics that are just as transparent, which is what do the employees think about the company, and then what do the customers think about the company. And they'll all be one thing that just is a holistic thing that you can use to actually rate the goodness of a company. And then underpinning all of that will be, what is the company actually doing to support the greater good, whether that be disabilities or whether that be Indigenous education or whatever that greater sense of purpose is. Because I think that whole environment, the world, the community is actually becoming very top of mind for customers and for employees.
To steal from Rajiv, it's everybody's going to be an open source company.
That's it.
Yeah. Absolutely. How about you, Zach?
I want to work at your future company.